when Gurdjieff said that coherent emotion feeds the earth, we need to be totally cognizant of every magnetic field, whether it's feeding the embeddedness or canceling it. And it applies directly to our choice of how to conduct electricity in our cities and homes. I've always thought love meant L turn into the O circle of phi, recursion, turn into the circle of recursion, LO phi. And life meant L turn into the I of phi, turn into the focus of recursion. And evil, which was live spelled backwards, was the mirror image of turning away from embedding or recursion. So we remember that words were only attempts to embrace the spin pattern of pure principle. And only pure principle lives forever. So if you spend your day thinking about pure principle, you live forever. And there's a physical reason for that. It has to do with, if you think only shareable thoughts, then you never have to dump out your filing cabinet and start over. And that's what death is. It's at the center of fractality, many paths and errands meet. It's not just a question of saying, well, planets are lonely to become stars. It's a question of saying, there could be a wider horizon of feeling. It's like, well, when magnetism has all the folded surface it can inhabit, which is called one brain, it's just a maximization of folded surface. That's what a brain is. Suddenly you need a bigger folded surface to unpack your spin onto, and you close your eyes, you feel the land, and then you realize, oh, my magnetism could inhabit the land, and that's bigger and more fun. And then you close your eyes and you say, well, gee, if I really focus, I can see the faces of stars, and you can inhabit a star. You say, well, that's more fun. So it wasn't exactly bigger is better. It was more a question of more embedding meant more being, more self-awareness, which meant more sharing. It's getting out of kindergarten. Well, supposing you had a kindergarten a long way from downtown, okay, and some of the kids in the kindergarten imagined that they would not be able to graduate because they couldn't feel compassion and get enough spin into their DNA to get out of the time bubble through the speed of light. So those children who imagined that they wouldn't be graduating might think that it was good to prevent others from graduating because then they could pretend to be big fish in little ponds. So, but in the short run that might seem like an interference pattern, but in the long run it probably would feel more like the useful resistance necessary to segregate the momentum of those who chose compassion to those who chose separateness. It just makes it easier to decide. In the sense that God spits out mediocrity, it needs to be absolutely clear those who choose to imagine secret thoughts and separateness versus those who give up this childish imagination that any thought was ever secret. And so that it makes it easier to decide if there appears to be a little resistance locally. And, I mean, it is said that the Dracos have interfered with our freedom, but on another level it's said that we invited that when Eisenhower made the treaty with the Greys. But in the long run, we have so much, well, I think it was well said by one of the Andromedans who apparently was watching. And he was watching a policeman in Chicago chasing a criminal, and the policeman shot the criminal, and looking at it from a distance and clairvoyantly, it was quite apparent that you could see anger in the aura of that policeman as he shot the criminal. But then the policeman ran over, and less than a couple of seconds later, the policeman is trying with all his might, with obvious compassion in his aura, to save the life of the person he just shot. Now the Andromedan is watching this from above and says, nowhere else in the galaxy have we seen the ability to steer emotion that quickly. You know what that means in terms of our potential to bend magnetism to make stars? It gives us hope. This is an animation of what it looks like to zoom in on the star system Orion. This is the belt stars of Orion. There's a black hole. There's a Goldwyn spiral that fits and zooms in right there. So if you can feel these things inside your body. This is 5 cuboids in Dodeca Icasa. Okay, thank you. This is called Earth magnetics. This is the aperture angle at which Earth magnetic fields would gather non-destructively if the elements of the Schumann resonance were arranged in a phi harmonic series. The magnetic fields around the Earth would begin to look like this. They would nest one inside the other non-destructively, so the Earth could become more embedded in the galaxy. And eventually, it would look like this, and then those would begin to pulse or breathe, and they would implode, and the Earth would create leverage on nearby star systems. This is a map which was inspired originally by the Ophanim angels. They said the Earth's magnetic fields, in order to be completed, had to look like what was called Ouroboros, which was 15 great circles. This one travels in the x-axis, this one travels in the y-axis, and they spin on both axes at once. So if you can visualize how spin would travel in 2 axes at once, there's 3 circles around each of 5 cubes in a dodeca, making 15 circles in perfect symmetric arrangement around a truly recursive magnetic sphere. Okay, so now let's get to the Mandelbrot fractal one. We have to take a little side trip here. This is called sun color vortices. I don't want to miss this one. In this one, we're looking at the heart of the sun, and we've ranged the 12 light cones that would nest in concentric dodeca. Just going to check our color bar here. Good. And as they spin, this looks like angel trumpets, but it's really the 12 light cones of concentric dodeca converging, which would be what the heart of the sun would look like if you could see it clairvoyantly. And in fact, we should just tell the story here about the meaning of the heart of the sun. Now this is from an article on my webpage called Heart of the Sun. And the purpose here is to visually learn the template for the principle of turning inside out in essence. And okay, this is 5 spins of the tetrahedron making an icosahedron. And this is the smoke ring image. This is what Leadbeater and Besant saw when they looked at the structure of the ultimate physical atom. It was a group of 7 spirals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then the group starts over. So it's 7 spirals outside, and it's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 turns inside and 7 turns outside. This is what Leadbeater and Besant saw as the shape of the ultimate physical atom they called the Anu, which apparently was a cookbook for taking light into a tourbillon, scroll work made of light, and creating hydrogen. Later, their work was translated by Phillips in England in Psi Perception of Quarks, 3 Anu per quark, and he showed that the clairvoyant work did correspond with today's subatomic physics. Here is a picture of what Babbitt saw when he focused clairvoyantly on the shape of the heart of the sun. 7 spirals outside, 7 turns here in 2 groups, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 turns inside, the same shape. Okay? Here is the human heart. Here are the 7 layers of the heart muscle, exactly at the 7 tilt angles of the tetrahedron. 7 turns outside, and what may by fractality be 5 turns inside. Seven turns outside, 5 turns inside. The 5 tilts of the cube in the dodecahedron. See the 5 differentially colored cubes. Here is the Ophanim angel's instructions on how to create a test for truth, called the sigil of truth, which we believe was the central geometric key to the Temple of Solomon. 7 turns outside, 5 turns inside. Now, if we look at this model, the dodecahedron outside is 5 turns of the cube, the central figure on the screen right now. Inside the cube is 2 tetrahedron that have 7 spins. So that's 7 spins inside of 5 spins, 5 spins inside of 7 spins. The central valence symmetry of gold is the completion of the D and F subshells, 10, 14 electrons, 5 pair and 7 pair of spins. which I believe is dodecaikasa. So what does every one of these images have in common? It's a pure cookbook for turning inside out. Okay? Now, what the Andromedans told us was that if you have someone in your aura that you think may not have pure intention, visualize yourself entering into the heart of the sun, and only pure intention can follow you there. Why would this shape itself? Why would shape, or how could shape itself be a test for pure intention? In the Enochian Keys ritual, if you have someone or something in your neighborhood and you want to test for pure intention, you draw a pentacle, 5 spins instead of 7 spins. The very phenomena of implosion creates a test for pure intention because only the shareable survives the center. This is the earth at the center of something shareable. This animation is called Pi's Fractal Animaze. And it was created by taking the equation for various Mandelbrot and Julia sets and dumping to Macromine Director and using the animate palette function. So the idea is that the embedding algorithm is the same as the color changes. Every ratio could travel through. I guess the best way to tell a story is Bucky Fuller's. You have cotton rope, wool rope, and nylon rope, and there's a slip knot traveling through the rope. And somebody said, well, what is the slip knot? Well, it's not cotton or wool or nylon. What is a slip knot? A slip knot is a memory of how to turn. And that's what people are among waves. So the Hebrew alphabet was a sequence of turns. The Ophanim alphabet was a superset of the Hebrew alphabet, the hypercube, dodeca. And it was a sequence of turns necessary to enter and leave stargates. So anyway, there you have it, Paul. I hope that does it for you. That's the Mandelbrot animation. Actually, perhaps sort of to wrap things up here, we're asking the question, there you were minding your own business and you decided you wanted to make a phone call to God. And suddenly you realized that if infinite spin density is infinite information density, and that is awareness, then God, by the principles of physics, has to live in the center of a fractal. Because if information becomes infinitely compressible there, and therefore you can share it with your friends for free. And that's how phone calls to God get made. So if you wanted to learn the spin path into and out of a fractal, you take the letters of the alphabet and you'd realize that you could zoom into any one of them, and you could zoom in forever and you'd always see the same thing. So at the start and the finish of the zoom, you would see the same shape. And that's how you needed to find a way to get that kind of spin into human awareness. So we were taught the letters of the alphabet as a way to learn how to make phone calls to God, which is specifically how to pack and unspack spin perfectly and non-destructively. And so that activity became as simple as ABC. It was a matter of tracking spin for how donuts would store their spin next to each other without fighting, and nesting these sequences of field effects in the quantum cookery to store inertia called matter was remembering your point of view with respect to the tilt of these toroidal donut magnetic fields. We can actually answer the question of why there's a dot on the I now. There's a capital R, a small r, elegant little s, T, U, our task is to learn embedding, and it has everything to do with feeling. And if we take responsibility for emotion and feeling, we can create our world in a new way from the inside out. Thank you very much.